Hey everybody, alright, let's talk about photography. One of my favorite hobbies, one of my favorite things to do, one of my favorite things to talk about. I find it really enjoyable. A lot of people do as well. Now I know you're telling me, I got a phone, I got an iPhone 26, Mr. Robson. I know how to take a great photo because I have the iPhone 26 and it's got 17 cameras on it. Well, your iPhone knows how to take a good picture, but do you? Your iPhone is doing most of that work for you, so you don't really even understand what's going on most of the time. But even with your iPhone 26 with your 17 cameras, you can either take a good picture or a bad picture depending on a number of factors, and we're going to talk about those different factors today as we look at the first one, the most important one of them all, here on our photography tips. Step into the light. So the first thing you have to pay attention to is really what it's all about. No matter what kind of equipment you're using, if you're using your iPhone 26X, or if you're using a fancy camera like this, whatever you're using, you can take a good photo or a bad photo, again, depending on one factor. Now, I often start this lesson with a bit of a trick question. I say, what is that a picture of?
So what happens now?
We face each other as God intended. Sportsmanlike. No tricks, no weapons. Skill against skill alone.
And people will say, well, that's Fezzik from The Princess Bride. And I'll say, no, it's not, even though it says Fezzik. He looks familiar from The Princess Bride. Also Andre the Giant, of course. And the answer technically is no. Because what you're taking a picture of, if you take a picture of my friend Fezzik there, is you're actually taking a picture of light. It's what you see, the colors you see, how much of Fezzik you see, all depends on how much light there is and what kind of light there is. So I'm going to show you a few different things today and kind of play around a bit with light and show you some of the differences. So I'm in a room with a big window over there, lots of natural sunlight coming in, and you can probably tell that most of the light is coming from this side because that side of my face is much brighter. And that is where the light is coming from. I also have a light on the ceiling, which is providing a bit of light as well. And what I've tried to do is I'm gonna take a number of photographs of Fezzik here using different kinds of light, and I'm gonna do it kind of two ways. Number one, I have left my video camera and my camera on manual mode, which means it's not really going to adjust anything for me. It's just going to take the same picture with the same settings in every case. So right now, hopefully I look fairly good, bright enough, you can see me, but once I start playing around with the light, you might start to notice that changes. Now normally I would have my camera perhaps on auto, and what auto does is it kind of compensates. So if I change the light, it will adjust for me. So I also will take pictures using my camera over here on auto mode, which will kind of adjust for the different kinds of light, and you'll see the differences. But even on auto mode, you'll see some very big differences. So the first thing I want to do is, leaving that big light on up there, I'm going to go and close that window. Watch what happens. Notice the difference? There's a couple of differences you'll notice right away. Obviously, it got a whole lot darker in here. The picture of me is not nearly as bright. You can't see Fezzik nearly as well. The other thing I start to notice more from Fezzik here is there's a big shadow behind him. So when I look at him, I can tell that there's a strong light coming from that direction, and it's casting a shadow over here. But that light isn't as strong as it was before. So it's not as bright. We can't see Fezzik nearly as well. You might also start to notice something called noise, which is kind of like little grainy bits in the photo. It's kind of that fuzz that you sometimes see in the photo. And I will take a picture of Fezzik in this light, both on auto and on manual, and I'll kind of show you the difference right there. And you'll notice that when I take it on auto, it's not too bad, looks okay. But when I take it on manual, it starts to look fairly dark. Now I'm going to do something ridiculous. I'm going to go turn off that light as well. There's still some light coming in from the window and under the door here. So it's not going to be perfectly dark, but I think you'll see the difference pretty much right away. So how's that look to you? So again, my camera is not adjusting for that. If I had it on manual, you'd still see me. It would adjust for that, but I left it on manual for a reason. Now, when I tried to take a picture of Fezzik here on auto on my camera over there, nothing came up. It wouldn't do it. It was just like, I can't focus on this. Forget it. You're on your own. When I took it on manual, well, here's what it looked like, which is pretty much nothing. Okay? Something else I want you to notice when we take the pictures. I'll turn that light back on. So this table here is very white. It's but if you look on this photo, and actually the wall is pretty white too, a little bit off white, I guess. But you'll notice that it looks very, very yellow. And that's because that light that I have up there is an indoor light. It's not a very strong light bulb. It's actually, I think it's one of those old style light bulbs. And those lights are very yellow or very orange. So you'll notice that the table and Fezzik and the wall all look kind of yellow or orange. When I go open the window, actually I'll turn off this light first. Then I'll go open the window just so you can see. Now, if you take a look, this table and the wall don't look yellow anymore. They look kind of blue. And so do I. Because I adjusted things kind of like this. So now I have that yellow light coming in from there and that white light coming in from there. So you can see the different kinds of light give you a much better photo in some instances than in others. And you'll also notice that when I use the auto, all the photos look fairly good because my camera's adjusting for me a lot of those things. But when you look at the manual photos, you can see those differences really fast. So the different amounts of light is going to make a huge difference in the kinds of photos that you have. So taking a picture indoors with no sunlight doesn't really look that good at all. So that's why the more light you have, and especially if you have sunlight, your pictures are always going to turn out better. So I want you to take as many photos as you can outdoors just because that's going to give you the best possible light. And you'll have a strong light coming in from one direction, so you'll start to be able to play around with shadows a little bit more. Whereas if we have light coming in from multiple directions, we don't see that bright shadow quite as well. So there we go. That's lesson number 1, different kinds of light. We'll play around with those and we'll actually go outside and just use some bright light and play around with how that looks in different situations. But before we go outside, I want to show you one quick thing that people do wrong all the time, and it drives me nuts. Now, I say to use natural sunlight, and sometimes you just can't go outside for whatever reason, or you're just too lazy to go outside. So it's okay to use sunlight coming in through the window, but sometimes you'll notice that it kind of makes the situation worse, and that's what's happening right here. So you'll probably see a big flaming blob over here, because I have this really bright light coming in from behind me. And my camera is still set on the same settings that we had over there. So it's kind of adjusting to the way I had it set over there, which is not conducive to the kind of light that I have right now. So you'll notice that my face is kind of dark, it's kind of pasty white, and I have this big blob over here. Now what happens when you're like this is that it looks pretty bad. Now if I put my camera on auto, it would adjust to the amount of light that we have, which is basically it's going to try to figure out how much light to let into the camera to properly expose the photo. But the problem here is that I have this huge bright light behind me and not much light on my face. So what happens when you sit in front of a window is that your face looks really dark and that bright light over there looks pretty good because your camera kind of closes down the iris a little bit, lets in less light because it thinks that it doesn't need as much light because there's that huge light there. But what it actually needs to do is turn the amount of light up to make my face brighter because it's a little too dark. So Fezzik over here looks pretty bad with that light behind him. But if we took a picture from the other angle with the light shining on him, like we did over there, things looked a whole lot better. So here are a couple photos taken from this angle with the light in the background. So when you're taking pictures or taking video, please don't sit in front of a window. People always think, well, there's lots of light now, it looks good, but the light is coming from the wrong direction. If you're going to take a picture using that light, you should be looking out the window, not have the light behind you. So if I turned this whole thing around and I had that light pointing on me or pointing on Fezzik here, the picture would look a whole lot better. So what happens when we come outside? And we were just inside using the window light. It's the same sunlight, same day. It's like a few minutes after that last thing that we looked at. But you'll notice that it's a little too bright now. I have this, my camera's running through this camera app, and basically my camera app shows me when things are overexposed, when there's too much light, and it adds these zebra stripes. I'll put up a screenshot just to show you what that looks like now, which is basically to say that the entire thing is overexposed. There's way too much light. I'm actually going to have to change my camera onto auto so that it adjusts for me. Otherwise, I can't even see what I'm doing. Crazy, right? Sunlight. Very bright. Who knew? Now that we're on auto, it's a little easier to see what's going on. You can still see that, probably because I'm wearing a black shirt, it's kind of adjusting to that, so the background is still pretty bright. My face actually looks kind of dark on my screen anyway, but there are some spots where the sun's really hitting it. Like my nose, for example, is really bright. The table's really bright. Poor Fezzik there is drowning. Geese! I'm busy. Go away. I hate geese. Anyway, so we have a lot of light coming in. Obviously, my face should be fairly bright. Ooh, my hands are all glowy. I should take a screenshot of that. So obviously the most light possible is the sun. The sun is shining directly on my face, so it should be fairly well lit. Again, I think my black shirt is probably throwing things off a little bit. But the problem is when I have myself facing the sun, like I said, inside, we want the light to be shining on me as much as possible. But what happens when we do that is that we start to squint. There's way too much light for my eyes, so I have to kind of close my eyes to filter out some of that light because it's just so bright. And so when you're taking a picture of a person, it kind of looks stupid sometimes because they have their eyes closed. Now Fezzik over here, he doesn't have that problem. He's not going to squint his eyes. So if I take my pictures of Fezzik outside, he's going to look much better. So again, I took some pictures that were manual and some pictures that were auto, and you can kind of see that they look pretty great. Lots of light. We can see Fezzik really well. But what happens when we turn things around? That's the next test. Hang on.
Come on, step into the light. Let it carry you away. We're running out.
So now I turn myself around, so I got the bright light behind me, so the sky is kind of glowing with those zebra stripes. Here, let me show you what that looks like. That means my sky, my bright light in the background is overexposed. My table is also overexposed, but Fezzik here, he looks a lot better. And so from this shot, he looks pretty good. My face is a little bit dark. I should probably adjust things a little bit, but you can kind of see that I'm not squinting as much anymore. I mean, you can probably not see my eyes because I need a haircut. Anybody offering COVID cuts? But you can see that it probably looks better. So when you're taking a picture of a person, often it helps to have the light kind of from behind or from the side, which also can look pretty good. So then we have bright light coming from the right direction, but you're not squinting as much. Want me to show you? Here, check this out. Airplane, airplane. So now what's happening is I have the bright light kind of over there. I'm not squinting as much because I'm not looking at it because it's over there, but you can kind of see that now one side of my face and my hand overexposed, too much light, but over here it's not too bad. So you just kind of have to play around with it if you're taking a picture of a person. If I turn my face kind of like that, then it's a little bit overexposed on the side and on my hand, but my face looks pretty good. So all you'd have to do is really adjust it. And Fezzik here, same thing. We could kind of turn him a bit so that the light is hitting his face, but it's not too bright. So that's how we play around with light. So getting the light right is super important. And often we don't even think about it because your iPhone 26 will adjust the light for you and make everything look dandy. But sometimes it just doesn't quite work. Now Fezzik here, depending on which way he's facing, he either looks great, because there's enough light on his face, we can actually see his face, or if we turn him, his face doesn't look quite as good. So those look pretty good. So what I want you to do is I want you to show me a couple of pictures. I want you to try to take pictures if you can. Doesn't matter what you take them with. Doesn't matter whether you have a fancy camera or just your iPhone 26 or your iPhone 2, which still sort of works. Take some photos. I want to see a photo where the light is great, it's perfect, it's coming in from the right direction, and I want you to tell me what's happening there. I want you to show me a photo where the light kind of sucks because the light doesn't really work. Maybe there's not enough light or the light is coming from the wrong direction, and I want you to tell me what's happening there. So show me 2 photos, tell me which one is the good one, which one is the bad one, brief explanation of each. That would be fantastic. You can send me your photos, upload them in Teams or in OneDrive, but please go into Teams there, push the little button wherever it is, the little assignment button, and then if you sent me your pictures in OneDrive or if you posted them on somewhere, make sure you tag me. So if you got the Instaface or the Facegram or whatever, if you want to tag me, Mr. J. Robson, Mister J. Robson, all one word, then I'll see them there. But make sure you write that in Teams. So the easiest thing for me to do, and really I'm not that smart, so you want to make it as easy for me as possible, is to upload your photos in Teams and briefly say, this is the good one, this is why, this is the bad one, this is why, and then turn in. That's easy for me. Thank you for making my life easy. Or you can put them on social media or OneDrive, or send a goose over to drop the photos off at my house. I don't know. But however you do it, just make sure you write that in Teams, turn in, then I'll mark it. I'll return it to you. And by the way, when you see something returned to you, it doesn't mean it's wrong. You don't have to hand it in again like some people think they do. Only hand it in again if you fix something up. So if your mark is not great, you can fix it up, hand it in again. Anyways, stay safe, wash your hands, stay home, have a good day, and stay away from geese.
Further and further and further